sitting here out of place, on the fence, on the ranch. Don't know if this is my home. I feel like I don't belong. My horse is my only friend. My fur color has made me an outsider. My ma and pa love my normal brother better. Can he do what I can? Can he feel what I can? I'm alone, alone in my home. Fate steps in and takes my paw. Everything is about to change. Oh God, how things are about to change.
The Unwanted One Part 8. Pictures by WappaLou. Written by the Furry Sith Lord. The previous evening, Martha was busy making a large pot of coffee while her husband was looking out the kitchen window towards the entrance of their ranch. "Any sign of him?" she asked, and he shook his head. "What is wrong with that boy?" he shouted, but his voice was more filled with worry than anger. "He did just lose his best friend. He loved Butterbean more than anything," Martha replied. "I know. I just wish," but he became choked up. She went over to him and patted his paw. "Don't worry, I'm sure Chase will find him," she said, and she went back to making sandwiches. She was afraid it might be a long night as they waited for their youngest to finish grieving over the loss of his best friend. He was shy and mostly overlooked, unlike his boisterous older brother. He never had many friends and hung on too tight to his pet horse. Now that he was dead, they were not sure what Katanos would do. Chase coming home now made things a lot worse because of the bullying he did to Katanos. He said he was trying to toughen him up, but it seemed to have the opposite effect. "What the?" her husband cried as two large pickup trucks sped into their property and stopped with the tires squealing. A gang of foxes jumped out, and they made their way to their front door. "Who are they?" Martha asked. Her husband waved her off and motioned for her to leave the room. "I'll handle this," he said, but the foxes suddenly kicked open the front door and ran into the house with handguns pointed as they looked around expecting trouble. The tigers walked slowly to meet the invaders with their paws raised. Martha hid slightly behind her husband, but she would not let him go alone. The henchmen grabbed them and roughly forced them to the floor. They held them in place with their guns pointed at them. A rough-looking older fox entered, and both tigers recognized him by his reputation. He was a known gangster that was an enforcer for the local mafia. Strange that they were out here when they mostly worked nearby in the city. "Isn't this pleasant?" the boss said as he faked a smile. "I'll give you what I can, but I don't have it all," the male tiger replied nervously. Martha turned to look at her husband in shock. "Rusty, did you take money from these furs?" she asked, and her husband Rusty blushed. "I had no choice. I had to pay for Chase's college costs. We couldn't afford it otherwise," Rusty explained. Martha gasped in horror at this revelation. "How much did you take?" she asked, and Rusty softly told her. The blood drained from her face, but the boss suddenly interrupted. "I don't have time to pay house visits to get stiffed on what I'm owed. Either you pay or we kill you and take your ranch. It'll make a nice summer home," the boss said. Martha began to slap and punch Rusty, but one of the bandits easily restrained her. "Do you have the money?" the boss asked. "Not all of it, I just need a little more time," Rusty pleaded as Martha looked away in disgust. "String him up," the boss ordered, and the bandits made the tigers rise to their feet and led them out to a tree next to the house. The bandits were setting up the nooses as Martha turned to her husband while their paws were tied behind their backs. "What will happen to our sons?" she asked as the nooses were tied to their necks and they were hoisted as the bandits pulled on the ropes, making the tigers rise. They struggled as they gasped and choked. The ropes were tied as the last bits of life were choked from them. They were set up as an example of those who do not pay what they owe. At this point, Chase and Katanos had entered the house of the Black Wolf. Little did they know that their parents had just been murdered. This ends Part 8. We hope you enjoyed it. See you next time.
Fate steps in and takes my part. Everything is about to change. Oh God, how things are about to change. Oh God, how things are about to change.